Listening Flow Podcast.
For speaking English with flow.
Hey, English learners. Welcome back to the Listening Flow Podcast, your English podcast for daily life English, real conversations, and easy listening practice.
And if you want to improve your English in a natural way, you're in the right place.
I'm Mag.
And I'm Jenna.
So, Jenna, how are you today?
I'm doing well, but a little nervous today.
Nervous? Really?
Yes, I had a job interview this week.
Oh, really? How did it go?
I think it went well, but I was definitely nervous before it started.
I think that's completely normal. Most people feel nervous before a job interview. That's actually perfect because it brings us to today's topic. Today, we're going to talk about something that many people experience at some point in their lives: job interviews.
And more specifically, how to succeed in a job interview in English.
Many English learners worry about interviews. Sometimes they don't know what to say. Sometimes they don't understand the questions. And sometimes they're simply afraid of making mistakes.
But here's the good news. You don't need perfect English to have a successful interview.
That's a very important point. Many people believe they need to sound like a native speaker, but that's not true.
Most interviewers are looking for clear communication, confidence, and preparation.
Exactly. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to prepare for a job interview in English and how to perform well when the interview actually happens.
We'll also share a few practical tips, some personal experiences, and useful vocabulary that you can use in real interviews.
So whether you have a job interview next week, next month, or maybe someday in the future, this episode is for you.
And don't worry, we'll keep everything simple, practical, and easy to understand.
Just the way we like it.
Exactly.
So Jenna, let me ask you something. When you hear the words job interview, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Honestly, the first word that comes to my mind is nervousness. I think many people feel nervous before an interview, even if they have experience. A job interview is a situation where you want to make a good impression, answer questions correctly, and show the interviewer that you're the right person for the position. That's a lot of pressure, especially when the interview is in English.
I completely agree. Even people who are very confident in their daily lives can become nervous during an interview. I think part of the reason is that interviews often feel like a test. You're sitting in front of someone you've never met before, and you know they're evaluating you. Every answer feels important.
Exactly. And sometimes the pressure doesn't come from the interviewer. Sometimes it comes from ourselves. We want everything to be perfect. We want perfect grammar, perfect pronunciation, and perfect answers. But that expectation can actually make us more nervous.
That's a great point. In fact, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make before an interview is focusing too much on being perfect instead of being prepared.
Yes, preparation is much more important than perfection.
That's very true. And actually, what you just said reminds me of something interesting that happened to me a few years ago. I was attending a business meeting, and there was a Spanish businessman sitting at the table with us. We were discussing company finances, budgets, investments, and future plans. Now, let's be honest, talking about finance and business can be difficult even in our native language. There are many specific terms, numbers, and concepts involved. What really caught my attention wasn't his pronunciation. It wasn't his accent. And it wasn't even his fluency. What impressed me the most was his vocabulary. No matter what topic came up during the meeting, he seemed familiar with the words people were using. He wasn't getting lost in the conversation. He wasn't constantly searching for words. And because the vocabulary was familiar to him, he could follow the discussion and express his ideas clearly.
That's a really interesting observation. I think many learners focus too much on sounding like a native speaker, but they forget that communication is the real goal.
Exactly. Sometimes people think fluency means speaking with a perfect American accent or a perfect British accent. But that's not what fluency really is. Of course, good pronunciation helps, but communication is much more than pronunciation. If you understand the vocabulary people are using, if you can talk about different topics, and if you can explain your ideas clearly, you're already doing something very important.
I completely agree. And that's especially true during a job interview. Most interviewers are not judging your accent. They're listening to your answers. They're paying attention to your experience, your skills, your ideas, and how well you communicate.
That's right. And that's why preparation matters so much. When you prepare for an interview, you're not just practicing answers. You're becoming familiar with the vocabulary that is likely to appear during the conversation. And when the words feel familiar, you naturally become more confident.
Exactly. Confidence doesn't always come from speaking perfectly. Sometimes it comes from feeling prepared.
As a matter of fact. So, Jenna, let's imagine that one of our listeners has a job interview next week. What's the first thing they should do to prepare?
That's a great question. I think the first thing they should do is research the company.
Research the company?
Yes, many people spend hours thinking about what they're going to say, but they forget to learn about the company they're applying to. If you know what the company does, what services they offer, and what kind of people they are looking for, you'll feel much more comfortable during the interview.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a little like preparing for a trip. If you're going to visit a new city, you probably want to know something about it before you arrive.
Exactly. And interviewers often ask questions like, "Why do you want to work here?" Or, "What do you know about our company?" If you've done your research, those questions become much easier to answer.
I remember making that mistake once. I was so focused on preparing my answers that I forgot to learn much about the company itself. Then, the interviewer asked me a simple question about the business, and I realized I didn't have a good answer.
That's a lesson many people learn the hard way.
It definitely taught me something. Now, whenever I prepare for an interview, I spend some time reading about the company first.
And the good thing is that it doesn't take very long. Even 15 or 20 minutes can make a big difference.
So, our first tip is simple: learn about the company before the interview.
Exactly. The more familiar the company feels, the less nervous you'll be.
So, what's our second tip?
Practice common interview questions.
Ah, that's a big one.
It really is. Many interviews include very similar questions. Questions like, "Tell me about yourself. Why do you want this job? What are your strengths? What experience do you have?" These questions appear again and again.
And yet, many people wait until the interview to think about their answers.
Exactly. Imagine a football player walking onto the field without practicing. It wouldn't make much sense. The same thing applies to interviews. If you know these questions are likely to appear, why not prepare for them?
I like that comparison. You're not trying to memorize every word, you're simply becoming familiar with your own story.
That's right, and that's an important difference. You don't want to sound like a robot. You don't want to memorize a paragraph and repeat it word for word. You simply want to know what you want to say.
That's a great point. Because if you forget one sentence from a memorized answer, you might panic. But if you understand your own experiences and achievements, you can explain them naturally.
Exactly. And that's much closer to a real conversation.
So far, we have two tips: research the company and practice common interview questions. What's tip number three?
Practice speaking out loud.
Not just thinking about the answers?
No, actually speaking them. A lot of people prepare in their heads. Everything sounds perfect in their minds. But then the interview begins, and it's the first time they've actually said those answers out loud.
And suddenly, things feel very different.
Exactly. Speaking is a skill, just like driving, cooking, or playing an instrument. The more you practice, the more comfortable it becomes.
I think this is especially important for English learners. Sometimes we know the vocabulary, sometimes we know the grammar, but our mouths aren't used to producing the words quickly.
That's very true. And one simple exercise is recording yourself. Take your phone and answer common interview questions. Then listen to yourself. You'll notice things you can improve.
I love that idea. It's simple, free, and very effective.
And don't worry if you make mistakes. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is practice.
I think that's one of the biggest lessons from today's conversation. People often focus on being perfect, but successful interviews usually come from preparation, confidence, and clear communication.
Exactly. And remember, interviewers are talking to a person, not a machine. They don't expect perfection. They expect honesty, professionalism, and good communication.
That's such an important reminder. I think that's one of the biggest lessons from today's conversation. People often focus on being perfect, but successful interviews usually come from preparation, confidence, and clear communication.
Exactly. And remember, interviewers are talking to a person, not a machine. They don't expect perfection.
They expect honesty, professionalism, and good communication.
That's such an important reminder. So before we finish, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had a job interview in English? Or maybe you have one coming soon.
Tell us in the comments, what's the part that makes you the most nervous? Is it introducing yourself, answering questions, or maybe speaking English during the interview?
And remember, keep your answers simple. The goal is practice, not perfection.
Exactly. Every comment is another opportunity to use your English.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like the video, subscribe to the Listening Flow podcast, and share this episode with a friend who is learning English.
Thank you for spending this time with us. We hope today's conversation helps you feel a little more confident before your next interview.
Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep speaking English with flow.
One conversation at a time.
I'm Mag,
And I'm Jenna.
and you've been listening to the Listening Flow podcast.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.